There's something really interesting that I've noticed, which is this rise of people identifying as autistic. And the thing that is interesting about it is that it looks like people who, by most standards, look pretty normal. And they call themselves high functioning autistic. They say that autism is a spectrum. And what I find in these kinds of videos is a lot of their content is explaining their symptoms and almost like proving why they are actually indeed autistic. And one of the big signs of proof is this sensation of masking, the sensation of being exhausted after conversation, being exhausted after performing social niceties, and finding that it takes extra effort. And another thing being like not liking needing to do all that, but still being able to. And so to me, when I hear this, I guess it really makes me pause because, one, it seems like I think there is a phenomenon in which the internet kind of creates it kind of gives people a way to diagnose themselves and pathologize themselves to an extent where anything where someone feels like abnormal, they can pathologize away. And I worry that people latch on to the term autistic as a way to pathologize why they don't feel normal, why they don't feel authentic, and why they feel strange. And, you know, I certainly can't say that anyone is or isn't autistic. That's not for me to say. But I definitely see a rise in young women or women at large who are going online and saying that they are autistic. And again, they repeatedly report this feeling of not enjoying doing social niceties, not enjoying having to wear a mask, talking about how exhausting it is. And I think that those are all very real experiences, and I don't think that it's just limited to an autistic experience. I think actually everybody masks in a certain way, and everybody gets tired from it because we basically all have this artificial way of being. We're all taught that there is a right way to be, and you know, as women, the right way to be includes being helpful, being nurturing, being understanding, being obedient, being quiet, and to perform the expectations of your gender is another kind of mask that we are dealt. And you don't have to be someone who, you know, is into gender ideology or LGBTQ to talk about the expectations of gender. And I think it's important to acknowledge all this because I think what happens is when people don't feel like they fit into what is considered the norm or the main narrative, you know, everybody wants to belong somewhere. And so sometimes it's like there's almost like these extra baskets that catch people if they don't fall into this specific norm. And it becomes almost like a way to describe or even have permission about not being normal. But the truth is, being normal is actually very strange. Like, being normal is a performance. And I think when you're disconnected from your authentic self, you think that there is this kind of out there normal that people are. But the truth is, when you actually live from your authentic voice, your authentic self, you see that people who are apparently normal, you see that they struggle with just as many anxieties and insecurities, and they come out in different ways. But yeah, their background and the performances they put on can kind of make you think otherwise. But the truth is, most people are trying to fit into the expectations of other people, or they're trying to get some kind of validation from somebody that they value, even if they're being rude or crass. Like, there is something that they are appealing to, and they're trying to prove themselves to and towards. I think people have this fantasy that if they were normal, if they perform normal enough, then they will get to a place where everybody accepts them and they never have problems. And that's not true, because there's no like out there normal where you never have problems again, or you don't get into conflict. So I think our idea of normal is that like everything should just go smoothly, everything should be peaceable, everything should just be right. And it's actually not even a normal way of seeing the world. The truth is, conflict is real. The truth is, people have different opinions and different perspectives, and they disagree. The truth is, you can feel differently about something than someone else. And that's all good, you know, like if we kind of project that, you know, the neurotypicals are the ones who have this like idyllic life and they have no problems, and you know, they're the normal ones, they get to live the normal life. I mean, it's just not true. Like, there is no place where, you know, you live without judgment or you live without conflict. Like, the truth is, everyone gets judged. Everyone gets told that someone else doesn't like something about them. Actually, everybody, even someone who you'd be like, that is the most normal, neurotypical person, that person has been judged. They've probably been judged by you. Like, so everybody gets judged. No one is like free from judgment. And that's why I think there's this kind of fantasy that, oh, well, the normal ones, like, they have it good. They don't know. And I think that this is actually how we create distance in ourselves. And because if we focus on what we have in common with people, like, the truth is, what we have common with people is everybody has problems and everybody suffers. Everybody goes through something challenging. It doesn't mean that everybody deserves your sympathy or empathy, but to understand that, yeah, everybody wants to be accepted and everybody does get judged at some point, it can make that feeling of, wow, am I weird? Am I not normal? It can kind of lessen the pain of that, because you just understand no one is normal, and there's never going to be this moment where we all line up and someone is all like, okay guys, here's who made the list of the most normal person ever. And I know we have like newspapers that like have listicles of like these are the great professionals in this field, and you know, like, you maybe your work employee of the month or whatever, right? Like, you know, we do have ways of recognizing people in our social groups, but there's never like this day of reckoning where it's like, okay, if you are normal, I will call your name and you are the truly normal ones. You know, it's like, there is no real normal. And I do believe that there are expectations and there are these kind of roles that we're expected to comply to, but I don't think that even those are inherently normal. And this draws an important or a careful line, because there can be a lot of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, where if you follow the line of thinking of like, oh, okay, well, if normal isn't normal, then maybe everything that we've thought of as normal is bad. Like all these kind of infrastructure and rules that we have, they're actually all bad. And so we should want to see everything destroyed. And I don't think that's a useful way of being, because again, that's baby out with the bathwater. What I'm trying to say with it is that there are like rules and etiquette that are good for us. It's good. I'm glad we have norms about, hey, be a good neighbor, and hey, don't hurt people, don't steal things. That's really great. And it's good that there's punishment if you violate those norms. I think that's good. I think it's good to have social consequences to bad behavior, but we are also aware that we live in a very corrupted world, in a world where not everything is as it seems, and that is also the part that's tricky and the part that's hard to navigate. And it's not just autistic people who struggle with knowing the unspoken rules. In fact, many people who are not autistic, they don't get it either. And often the people who get those rules the most are the people who are kind of in the network of people who understand how these rules work, or basically are the ones who kind of enable these rules to work, or all of this, like you could talk about nepotism, how, we have this idea that, okay, if you get good grades and maybe volunteer and you show you're a good worker, you can apply to a job, show your relevant skills, and you can get a job. But the truth is, most jobs come from being in a network, like knowing somebody who can recommend you, or knowing somebody who hires you. And so it's kind of this like illusion we have that it's like, oh, you can just like apply to a job and get a job. And like some people do, that does happen, but as we're seeing now, like it's just not really realistic. It's not really how people get work. That's like an unspoken rule, is that you actually don't get work because you just applied to an open position. You get work because you know somebody. And you're more likely to get work if you know well-connected people. And people who are well-connected stay well-connected. And so that's kind of how they protect their status. And, that's the benefit of somehow, either growing up in that network or being invited into it. And that's like kind of the unspoken rule. And yet there's a lot of spoken rules about how you can get a job and how you can make your resume better and how you can ace the interview, even though the unspoken rule is actually most people, most hirees were chosen before the whole interview process started. And that's just one example of the many unspoken rules that we navigate that are super confusing to us. And it's not because we can't like read social cues, but it's like because there are layers of complexity in our society that are just confusing, and you don't have to just be like neurodivergent to be confused by them. And I think that's something that we all like have in common, is this world is confusing. And the thing is that when you really are authentic about something, when you are really genuine, you don't have to prove anything, you just are. You also don't have a need to defend yourself, even though like, getting defensive is a normal human response, but generally when you feel secure, you don't feel a need to defend yourself or prove why you are valid or authentic or real. It just is. And the truth is, like, when you become authentic, the truth is, there are people who will, like, they might not see you as authentic, or they might not be able to ride with you, or, handle your way of being. And some people just get triggered at you being centered and steadied and being different from them. And I think that is a hard truth for people to reckon with, because if you think that it's all about, oh, it's because I'm neurodivergent, I'm different, and, if I just explain to them that I'm different and, like, I actually have this condition, so you need to be nice to me, like, I'm different, I need this I need this kind of, or you have to give me a break in a way. It's kind of like, give me a break, I have this thing. And again, I'm not trying to say, like, that's inherently wrong or bad or anything. I'm not trying to say this, but I am trying to point out that I think there are cases in which people can pathologize themselves instead of actually getting in touch with their authentic self, which is what's more important to them. Like, if you don't like the mask and you don't like living from the mask, just saying you're autistic, guess what people are doing is they're performing a mask of, look guys, I'm actually autistic. And I think it's pretty ironic, because it's like they want to say, hey, I am, I'm so not normal, and I'm so tired of having to mask normal. Here is me not being normal. And, I think there are ways in which that is true, but then also they feel a need to prove and perform the mask of, this is what autism looks like, right? And, that mask, as I'm saying in this way, an autistic mask, that's typically like diagnostic criteria, right? Like, that would be criteria to determine someone's diagnosis. But the thing is that self-diagnosis is not reliable. And also, so like for assessments that are related to ADHD and autism, it's useful to have it's useful and necessary to have accounts from not just the individual, but from parents and friends and teachers. It's typically teachers and parents, but other people who have a different perspective and see how these people act, because it might not line up totally with the diagnostic criteria. Me saying all this, I am not trying to say, like, people who feel like they're in this limbo world of, like, oh, I identify with some of the autistic criteria, but yes, I'm high functioning. I'm not trying to push these people away. In fact, I'm actually trying to make this video for these kinds of people who are in this kind of limbo state where they're like, there's some of this that I resonate with, but there's also some of this it's like, I kind of don't feel like it's appropriate for me to claim or say is me. And what I'm trying to say is that that's all legit, and probably the tension or the thing that you're feeling is this experience of living from the mask and feeling like it's not enough, it's not sufficient, it's not sustainable, and yet you can feel the expectations of that, whether or not they're as deeply necessary to adhere to as you might think. There's a lot to say about that. That's what this channel is about. This channel is about how to connect to your authentic self, how to connect to your authentic voice, because I do believe that we are real. We have a real self. We have a self that knows things really well and really perceptively. We have a self that is authentic, that is beautiful. And when we, live from this place, not only do we feel congruent in ourselves, we actually feel like our life outside of us is also congruent. So that means that you feel like you connect with the right people, you're in the right places at the right time, like you are experiencing this alignment, and it all begins with how you feel internally first and how you interface in this experience. And yeah, there is just so many examples in which people are disillusioned with authenticity. People don't know if it exists, and yet people crave it so much. People crave something real, like there's always how people say, oh, we want authentic cuisine from this culture, like, oh, don't go there, it's not authentic. Like, authenticity is actually a really big value in our lives because it tells us a kind of core, it tells us about the nature of that thing. And, we live in a very artificial world, and so actually authenticity becomes more and more valuable. And that's why I believe, like, tuning into your authenticity, it's not even just a matter of, it is always about you. Okay, I'm not gonna say it's not about you. It's absolutely about you and your experience, but it's this kind of limited thing that, because people don't feel like they're in touch with, they really do look for it. They really do value it, and to have it and know what it feels like for yourself is amazing. And I know that you can actually develop it in yourself. You can reconnect to that authentic voice. You can reconnect to something that is real within yourself. And you don't have to pathologize yourself, and you don't have to prove to other people how you are actually this pathologized version of you, and that's why you don't fit in with the norms. Like, to me, it just feels like we are looking for permission to be different, and that's kind of the first key to authenticity, is you are never waiting for permission. You don't need other people's permission to be different. You don't need other people's permission to do what you feel is right. And it's this fine line where, of course, we're social beings, and we share different spaces with people, whether you're in any kind of public setting, like, there is etiquette, there is rules to keep a space safe and appropriate, and I do believe in abiding by that for, a general good. And also, you'd be surprised how much I was gonna go and say, you'd be surprised how much, like, we can get so in our heads about what other people think, and then it turns out other people are not thinking about us because they're thinking about themselves. And so in those few moments, like, where you think you need permission, honestly, no one was even looking at you. Like, no one was even questioning the authenticity. No one was questioning the legitimacy. Like, you had nothing to prove to anyone. Because those people are focused on themselves. And so that's kind of the first thing. It's like, you'd be surprised how much permission you don't need. And actually, the only permission you do need is coming from yourself, like the permission to do this thing, or, permission to not wear the mask, permission to show someone what you're really feeling. And I really do think it's a process. I don't think you can just go from, I don't think you can just go A to B. Maybe that's not the best way to say it. Like, it can be hard. Like, it's something you practice, but this kind of practice isn't necessarily like you're practicing charisma. No. And, practicing charisma is almost like a similar thing, where you think like there is a right way to be. It's almost like the opposite of saying that you're you're a high-performing, high-functioning autistic. It's like, I'll learn how to be super charismatic, and because that is the most coveted normal trait. Those are the normal people. And even trying to learn that, it's basically just learning another performance of this is what charismatic people do, and here's how to be charismatic. And while I do think that like you can definitely study psychology and how to like have good relationships with people, ultimately like charisma comes down to how you feel about yourself and how you make other people feel when they're around you. So you can be charismatic just by, being positive and then being positive around other people. It can be really simple. It doesn't have to be this thing of like you put on a new persona and you practice a script of all the charismatic ways to be and, all the right body language to show how charismatic you are. These are all just like kind of performances that we're told to do and practice in order to really impress people or prove to people that we are this thing. And it's just not really necessary, because the truth is people see through things. They really do. They see through things. So, if we know that we can see through things, we get the sense of what is true or not, why keep up the performance? And I think for that, it's kind of like there's a part of us that lies to ourselves about what we think, what we think about what we're doing and what we're justifying to ourselves. And, it's okay. I mean, I've lied to myself. I think it's a natural part of being. It's like sometimes you're not ready to accept the truth. And I think that is the first part of becoming authentic, is accepting truth as it is. But a lot of people have a hard time accepting truth because it can be really uncomfortable. And if you haven't learned emotional regulation, if you haven't learned how to hold an uncomfortable emotion, well, you're gonna avoid it. And, that's where the line comes in, is because you don't want to feel that uncomfortable emotion. I think there's more I could go into here, but I think I'm just gonna stop it here. And let me know your thoughts. Let me know if any of this resonated for you. If you do disagree with me, that's totally welcome. You're welcome to disagree with me. I just ask that you be respectful, and I will be respectful and kind. I think having discourse and discussion is great. And also I think it's important to be mindful of why we're saying something and, what effect we're trying to have. So here, for what I've said, I'm not here to like tell people that they're liars, but I am here to say, hey, maybe it doesn't have to be about pathologizing yourself and wearing a new mask and proving and getting permission to be this different way. Maybe it's actually about you're tired of living in a way that just doesn't feel honest to yourself, and you don't have to wait for somebody's permission in order to do that. You don't have to prove to anybody that you are who you are, because people, some people don't take you as what you are, and you know what? That's okay. Other people are allowed to feel what they feel, and you learn that other people's experiences is not really your job to handle or control. They're totally allowed to have their experience too. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.